All right, it's Thursday night. We finally got I got the right microphone selected. It's hard after you've done hundreds of videos to remember to select the microphone that you're using, but I did it now, so we're ready to go. Yanni, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm actually here. Bet Crusher Bradley's with me. He's doing a little research too. He's
Nice.
been doing some DFS, doing a little bit of DraftKings and that. So yeah, he's studying up with us.
Dude, is he going to have something for us tonight?
I told him, I said, if there's a game you like, you let me know and we'll let you talk about it. So
Absolutely,
we'll
anytime. Yeah. He'll probably do better than I've been doing for sure so far this year.
We both did just a one showdown DFS on Monday night, and his team outperformed mine. So that's all you need to know.
This is the go-to guy.
There you go. There you go.
So, well, truly, if he comes up with something, have him jump in here, and we'll get him in. I'm gonna wait a little bit. I do have a couple props for Thursday night. We won't spend too much time because obviously, if people watch the replay, that's going to be pointless by the time they watch this. But in a few minutes here, we'll talk about the Thursday night game just a little bit. Let's start out though, Yanni. If you're up for it, I feel like I am not able to have a meaningful opinion on the Vikings right now. Decades of them underperforming or like that. I'll say this. That game on Sunday when they were up 28-0, I said, I think they're going to lose because that's what the Vikings do. And the Packers put on that huge comeback, and I'm just like, yep, here it is. This is what always happens with the Vikings. They pulled it out. I'm like, maybe this team's different. I don't know, because they lose that game. Like, that's what they do. So yeah. I would love to hear your take, man, on what you think about the Vikings and then maybe in relation to this game in London early on Sunday as well.
Yeah, I think it's a fun team, obviously, at this point to talk about. And how about the fact that Darnold, I believe, is third or fourth best odds to win MVP a quarter way in. I mean, who would have thunk that, right? So, you kind of look at it, and I think obviously there are some things preseason we talked about that were exciting for the team, and that was the fact that their defense, could potentially be good if they played as a unit, which they are. And then, offensively, really the question mark was Darnold, right? I mean, I think we felt like, hey, the offensive line's pretty good. Aaron Jones is a quality running back there. We know they can throw the ball a little bit with the receivers. So Darnold, of course, has obviously helped get them to where they're going to be. The question is, can he do that all year? We talked about here, after week 2, you kind of asked that question. I said, I need to see a little bit more. But I'll tell you what, I think I've seen enough. I think I'm in. I'm in on the Vikings here. And, we'll see if they can kind of continue the really dominant run that they've been on. It's a little bit different. We always talk about when you go from being the underdog to kind of being the favorite. And that means something, in terms of that. But I think that they're a legitimate team. And I mean, you got to be excited because, I mean, it could be, I think they opened the practice window, or they're going to, for TJ Hawkinson. So it's like this team could potentially even get better as the year goes on. They've stayed relatively healthy compared to a lot of teams early on in the season. So they're going to need to continue to do that. But I mean, I like what you get with this team. So let's talk about it in terms of this London game here. I feel like traditionally, this would be a game where you would look at this and say, this is a Jets game, right? Like, Jets are coming off an ugly loss. They're, Vikings obviously flying high, whatever. It's kind of like a natural letdown regression spot for Minnesota, right? I mean, I think that's what you would normally look at here. But I'm going to be honest with you, even though I've heard some sharp bettors taking that angle and saying, this is a letdown spot, this is where Minnesota trips up, and they might. I mean, with that London game, you never know. I mean, it's a different schedule. I mean, you just don't know how teams are going to fully respond to that. But I'll be honest with you, I love the Vikings this week despite that. And the reason being is matchup. I think that they match up so well against the Jets. And, we can sit here and argue about if we think they're a whole lot better than the Jets or not. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But what I do know is they match up really well in this game. And I look at Aaron Jones potentially having a big game running the football here. I think that, I think Jefferson's one of a few receivers that can actually beat the best corners in the league, on a consistent basis there. So I think they're going to be able to run the ball. They'll be able to throw where they need to, but I really like how they match up defensively with the Jets here. And there's a lot of similarities. So Denver and Minnesota have been the two blitz heaviest teams through the first 4 weeks. I don't know, if you were aware of that, but
Flores does, right?
That's what he does. But the Jets struggled big time with that blitz against Denver last week, and I see more of that. I think that the Jets are going to struggle to score here because I don't think they're going to run the ball that well. Minnesota's run defense has been pretty good. I don't think they're going to run the ball very well. And if they're blitzing like Denver and getting home, that's a tough spot for Rodgers. And I also heard Rodgers had a little bit of a knee injury. He's a little banged up. And
said on Pat McAfee that he had a swollen knee. Basically, he'd be okay to play, but he had swelling in his knee.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, does that impact? I don't know. But, the bottom line for me is I'm kind of going against that sharp theory of regression here. And I'm saying that the matchup is too good that if you're getting under that key number of a field goal, and I know it did get to 3 for a brief, split second before Jets money came back in there. I just think this matchup is like a dream matchup for the Vikings. So I'm not – at some point that regression is going to happen. Maybe it'll be the following week. Maybe it'll be the following week, whatever. I don't think it's going to be this week. I think that, this is a type of game where they're going to match up so well that I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, man, I'm trying hard not to get too excited, to be honest. I mean, I'm not over excited. I'm not like, oh, this is the Super Bowl winner. But I think they've looked good across the board. And like you said, they're going to get Hawkinson back. They got Addison back this last week. The offensive line actually hasn't played up to their standards yet, I don't think. And so I think the offensive line is going to keep getting better. I loved that I heard Van Ginkel was talking after the game this past week and said Flores was upset because he just said that second half isn't up to our standards. And I totally agree with him. That wasn't a good look in the second half. So I like the fact that you can enjoy a win, but also say, hey, that's not the way we need to play. If we want to be the team we're going to be. This game this week, I have a very hard time betting Minnesota as a favorite. Like you said, this just feels like a Jets spot. Here's where I've come to, though. From what we've seen so far, I have to say the Vikings are a better team than the Jets right now. Their offense is definitely better. Their defense is in the mix. They don't have the same personnel, but man, the scheme and the pressure has been really good. I think if Minnesota loses this game, it's because of turnovers. I think it's the Sam Darnold 3 interception game hits. One of those maybe is a pick 6. That's the way I would see the Vikings lose this game. So I haven't bet anything on this, and I maybe won't, but I'm half tempted to bet Minnesota's money line or something, or take the -1.5 or 2 if I have to, and then bet Sam Darnold to throw at least 1 interception, and maybe I could hit both.
Yeah.
I just think that's the main way they lose, if they lose this week with the way the teams have been playing.
I agree with you, man. And I'll tell you what, normally there are a handful of sharp bettors that I respect a lot. And normally if they have takes, I will factor that in normally. But I'm telling you, I'm on my own with this one. I mean, I'm riding the Vikings with this one. I don't care what anyone else is on. I love the matchup too much for Minnesota in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're hot right now. Them and the Commanders.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Imagine if the Vikings had Jaden Daniels. What a treat that would be. Hey, let's talk real quick about this game tonight. Well, if you're watching this right now, it's tonight. We got the Bucks going to Atlanta, and what I wanted to basically throw in here is I just had a couple props I like, so I'll throw those out. And then if you want to say anything about this game, and if you don't have anything, that's fine. It should be a close one in my mind. I think these teams are probably relatively close to the same level. But what I like is that Baker Mayfield has been torching zone this year compared to man, and the Falcons play like 85% zone coverage.
Right.
Now, do they mix it up tonight? Of course they could mix it up. But against zone also, Godwin and Otten get the highest number of targets. The Bucks' third and fourth receivers are out tonight, so that's going to concentrate target share, I would imagine, maybe even more toward Otten, toward Godwin, especially against that zone. I'm not saying Evans isn't going to have a good game either. They get it to the running back, so all that can happen. But I took over on receptions for Godwin and for Otten. And I did Otten, I think, was 3.5, and Godwin was 5.5 or 6.5. But then I also did Otten 5+. and Godwin 10 plus, both of those at like plus 400 or something like that.
Yeah.
I did the receptions because I could see in that zone a lot of short passing potentially. Yep. And so I wasn't excited about the yards as much for those two in particular. But that's where I went for tonight on Godwin, and Otten, both over on the receptions.
Well, you and I are either going to look really smart together or really foolish together. So
I feel all right about that.
I'm on Godwin as well. I have not gotten on Otten, although I agree with your take basically with what you said there. I did fade Mike Evans, and
I don't hate it.
Well, and the thing with Evans is he can potentially always catch a 50-yard touchdown. I mean, that's always a possibility. So, you're always rolling the dice a little bit if you're fading him because it can be one catch and you're done, right? Yeah. But, I faded him twice this year and won both times. And I just think that in this matchup, like you said, I think it's going to be more of that short underneath the field type stuff. And I don't think short of catching a bomb, I don't see Evans getting there. So I'm with you. I like the Godwin prop over. I like Evans under.
Love it. And if I had to pick, I think Tampa right now is the better team here, unless the Falcons can get a lot of pressure, which I'm not sure they can. So I haven't bet Tampa Bay to win, but man, I don't mind the money line on Tampa Bay tonight, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually lean Tampa as well, but I don't want to play them though. I mean, I feel like this is kind of a weird, short week divisional type game. I did put a little bit on the under 44. That number got steamed up just a little bit. I don't love that either, but I felt like what we've seen so far this year on Thursday night is we've seen some bad football. I think early in the season, these short weeks are tough. So, give me a little bit on the under here and maybe we see a little bit of ugly football, some punts and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, but, I can definitely see that. I mean, that goes along with the short passing and
yeah.
I don't like this Falcons offense much right now at all. But Tampa's defense is banged up, right? So, I mean,
I think this Falcons offense, until they get their offensive line healthy, they're going to be down 2 starters tonight. And I think that's a big deal when you're talking about a guy like Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's got to have a clean pocket in front of him. And I don't know that he's going to. So, we'll see. If they can't run the ball well, Falcons could struggle to score.
Yeah, I like it. All right, we're both on Godwin. Over on receptions, over on yards probably is fine too. If you're watching and there's anything you want us to talk about, any games you want us to touch on for this week, just drop those in the chat and we'd be happy to do that. Yanni, do you have any games that are sticking out to you as you look ahead to week 5?
There are a couple. This is a pretty, if you look, there's a lot of close spreads this week. And, obviously there's a reason for that. But the game that I like the most is actually games with the biggest spreads, and that's the 49ers and Cardinals. I think the 49ers, I think you can play this multiple ways. I think their team total is very much in play here. I think their offense slices and dices this Cardinals defense. I mean, I think this is a 30-plus point performance. I mean, they've essentially been rolling even without all their weapons, and now they basically have all their weapons minus McCaffrey. But, of course, we've seen Jordan Mason come in and play fine. But I think their team totals in play. I think, if you're getting them, if you can get them at 6.5 or even at 7, obviously, I think you can play them. And then obviously you can tease them as well. I mean, it's hard to see them losing this game, so they can be a teaser leg. But I think, Arizona's defense is really not good. They struggle. And when you look at all the ways San Francisco can beat you, I just see them racking up some points. It's possible that the Cardinals could keep up on the scoreboard, but, Trey McBride's been injured. Even though the Niners are a little banged up on defense too, I just don't really see that happening as much. I feel like, to me, this is definitely one of those 35-10 type of games.
It feels like it should be. I agree. They're getting Debo back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good matchup for Debo. So talk about props. That's probably something I'll be looking at, though you always have to be worried he's going to pull a hammy again on his first play.
You never know.
But I agree with that. I actually did tease them with the Seahawks was what I did. So Seahawks down to half a point, and San Francisco, I think was at 7 when I did the teaser. So down to -1 on San Francisco. Yeah, Arizona is one of those teams, and I probably was a little bit guilty of it as well, who got steam for a week or two because it was like, oh, Marvin Harrison Jr. is awesome, and Trey McBride we know is awesome, and those are really nice pieces. It's nothing against that, but The defense is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing Kyler Murray be what he is, which is okay. And so, I can't see the offense keeping up, outside of something crazy happening here.
Yeah. Yep.
This is probably one of the last weeks where we get a depressed price on San Francisco if they go out and crush again.
I agree. I think, and it could be the opposite with Arizona, right? Where I think they're still getting a little bit of credit, like, oh, this team's not bad. And I think we're starting to see kind of truly who they really are. So I think you're right. You got an inflated price on Arizona and, like you said, a depressed price on San Francisco potentially. And we probably won't get that forever.
Yep. I like it, man. I'm definitely right there with you on that one. I'll throw out one of the games that I really like this week, which is, I hate to say it, but it's the Packers going to the Rams. Packers you can get -3 now. I bet it already at -3.5, which I was fine with, though obviously -3 is better. But the way I look at this game is Jordan Love now has another week to get healthier. He threw 3 picks last week, and I know the Vikings turned the ball over as well, but I don't think that's going to actually be very normal for Jordan Love. Minnesota's defense is chaotic enough. They're going to force that sometimes. What this Rams defense is right now is not that. And I think that they're going to struggle on every level against Green Bay's offense. I know that Watson's out right now, but they've got so many good receivers right now. Who cares, right? Like, they can miss one of these guys in a spot.
So I got to be honest, not to cut you off, but I think that this offense is better without Christian Watson. I feel like, honestly, even though they try to make him like wide receiver 1, I think he's like wide receiver 4 on that group. And I think that, sometimes when he's in there, he's almost that like force the ball to him. I think the offense flows more naturally when he's not on the field. So I don't think they're going to miss him at all. I think this is a huge Josh Jacobs game. I think his rushing prop is very much in play. The Bears were able to run on the Rams last week. I think Jacobs has a 100-yard day. I'm with you 100%, and I'll let you finish because I cut you off there. But I think the Packers, I think they go in there, and that's also another team total that I think you can look at and over with along with San Francisco. I think their offense absolutely rolls in this game, and probably their defense will as well, just based on the injuries that the Rams continue to have offensively.
Right. I mean, really right now, even if you look at last week, and Chicago's defense is probably as good as the Packers, maybe even a little better, but it was just Kyron Williams. I mean, that's all they really have. They have no receivers right now, to your point. And yes, Matt Stafford is good. And yes, McVay is a good coach. I just don't think that's enough to overcome what they have to deal with personnel-wise at this point. And I think you're going to get Green Bay, not like maybe they don't need motivation in the NFL, but motivated off that loss to the Vikings, of, all right, now we're down to 2-2 and Minnesota's 4-0. Like, let's go in here and take care of business.
Right.
And I think they roll. This is one where, and I haven't done anything with it yet. All I bet was the -3.5 so far. But I can definitely see if you can get a good line on like -6.5, I wouldn't mind it. Green Bay's team total, I definitely don't mind. I think this could end up being like a 10 to 14 point win for the Packers.
It could. It absolutely could. If it weren't for, I always end up having so much respect for Sean McVay that I'm always like hesitant to fade them too much. But you're right. I think this is just asking too much. I mean, they're too beat up. I just think, I think this is just a really good spot for the Packers here.
All right. Well, we're on the same page with that one too. This offense, man, and Jaden Reed looks really good.
He's a good player, man.
The season of like which one of these guys might be a number 1. Are they all number 2s? Jaden Reed looks like a number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think, he's obviously a little smaller, plays the slot a little bit. So I think, people don't really consider him as like a wide receiver 1. But I think when you look at production and talent, he's absolutely a wide receiver 1, I think.
That's what I would say is production wise. He's putting up these big numbers.
Yeah.
And it's probably a little over the top, but I heard one of the apparently in the Green Bay locker room, a lot of the coaches talk about Dontavian Wicks as being like Devontae Adams. That's like the kind of upside they think he has. I don't know, man, but you get something like that, Green Bay's offense is going to be dangerous.
Well, when you look at, obviously, you got to get beyond just stats. You got to get beyond just whatever. And when you look at some of the things that whoever, PFF or some of these things put out, when they put things like separation for wide receivers and some of those things that you can dig in a little deeper with, Dontavian Wicks is a guy that's like on the top, end of that chart there. So it's like, again, not necessarily a hugely known guy, hasn't been tremendously productive, but obviously when he gets out there, he can play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We'll see if we can find one here yet that we're not on the same side. So far, we've been pretty aligned here. I'd like to hear you talk about the Bills, man. Obviously, it was a tough game last week going down to Houston. Houston's a team that has underwhelmed so far compared to the expectations that were there going into the season. I think this is a really interesting game on Sunday. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't have a strong opinion as far as betting goes. And really the main reason I think is both of these teams are kind of beat up. And I think that makes handicapping a game like this tough. I think that if both teams are healthy, you can kind of look at this and say, well, maybe this or that. But right now, there's still a lot of question marks on both sides with some really key people. And, for me, a guy on Houston, Joe Mixon's huge in this game. If if he's healthy, I think Houston's offense could potentially look really good. I think we could see similar to what we saw the Ravens do, which was try to pound it at them. And, if Mixon's not healthy, I think that changes things a lot. I mean, we've seen with Akers. I think Bradley wants to get in on this one. Come over if you want to jump in on that, buddy.
Do it, man. Come on,
yeah,
Bradley.
I think, on the opposite side there, the thing that worries me is actually Stephon Diggs here, believe it or not, because, we know that he's going to be fired up. He normally would draw Taron Johnson. He's playing primarily in the slot. And when you go from Johnson to Cam Lewis, that's a huge downgrade for this Bills defense. I actually think they can probably control Nico Collins and Tank Dell a little bit. But Diggs worries me a little bit here. And then, on the flip side, if Khalil Shakir is out for the Bills, which looks like a very strong pop. Yeah.
I hadn't even heard that about him.
Yeah. And, the Bills receiving core is very questionable to begin with. Shakir's kind of the one consistent that Allen, relies on, knows he can make plays. If he's not out there, you got a lot of question marks out there. And I don't know that guys like Matt Collins can, consistently win against a good defense like that. So too many question marks for me. But Bradley, come over here if you want, sit and you can talk into that microphone there. All right.
All right. Well,
go ahead and sit there. I'm gonna put these on you, okay? So you can.
Bradley, what's happening?
Just talking to
hey,
I'm excited for your debut here, man. What do you got for us?
So Dad kind of went past what I was going to talk about. I kind of covered the whole Ravens-Bengals game. So I'm just going to look at my notes, and this is my first time, so I might stutter a little bit.
Oh, you're doing great, man.
Thank you. I'm going to try to go over the Ravens and the Bengals O-line, and then I'm going to try to go over the pass and run defense and how they're going to do.
That sounds awesome. Give it to us.
All right. So the first thing I want to talk about.
Keep your hand down. I didn't have to.
The first thing I want to talk about are the O-lines. I want to talk about the Ravens O-line first, and it should hold okay. It's average, but so are the Bengals D-line, and obviously Lamar can get out of pressure easily. The Bengals O-line, it's not great, and there's no one really on the Ravens D-line that's a big name, but I definitely think Burrow might get sacked a little bit. The Bengals O-line is pretty terrible. So moving on, I want to talk about the pass defense of both the teams, and they're both really bad. I would watch out for Jamar Chase, definitely. If you're the Ravens pass defense is really, really bad. It'd be like if Dad got on the field and played.
He might do better even, huh?
Probably. But the Bengals pass defense isn't too great either. And you might want to watch out for Isaiah Likely. He's not great, but he's been having a pretty good first few games. And I definitely think that he could play a little good in this.
So who wins?
I wrote that down. I think that the Bengals win this. Joe Burrow has been playing really, really well. He's got the average QB rating over these 4 weeks of 105, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is.
He has 7 touchdowns and 1 interception, which is crazy. And I think that the Bengals receivers are just too good. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins hurt. but other people like that, they're just too good for the Ravens' pass defense. But I would watch out for Derrick Henry. The Bengals really have an average run defense, and obviously Derrick Henry's above average. And I would expect some Lamar rushing touchdowns, maybe.
All right.
But if there's anything I would tell you to bet on, it would be betting on the over on points. I don't even know what the over is. I don't even know. But
48.5 is the number right now.
I still think that I would bet the over. Still
got it. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
I like it. Hey, real quick, I got a question for you. I know your dad's going to jump back on, but I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a prediction for the score in the game? I know you said you like the Bengals and you like a lot of points. You got a prediction?
I don't, but I can come up with one here on the fly.
Right.
I would say something like Ravens 28, Bengals 34.
Love it. That sounds like a fun game.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
All right, Bradley. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the breakdown. Good work.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Dude, I think he brings more info to the table than we do.
He had his stats together, man.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, all right. I can roll with that. All right, I got it.
34-28. We gotta see what the final of that game is.
If that's that game, I want to watch it. It'd be like we finally have a fun NFL game. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Good job, Bradley.
He crushed it.
Yeah, I'm curious. So obviously I know, and I thought he wanted to talk about the Bills there. That's why I brought him in. But I'm curious on both of those games. I'm curious on your Bengals Ravens thoughts as well, but then also going back to what your thoughts are. Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what he said. I like how he talked about both pass defenses not being great, and especially this Ravens secondary against these Bills receivers. I think that the Bengals are starting to get going, and I do think that could be problematic for the Ravens. The one thing that I'll say, and he's right, the Bengals have not been good against the run. In fact, they probably haven't even been average. They've been pretty bad.
Right.
But it does sound like their D-line is getting a little bit healthier now, which doesn't mean that I think they're going to be great. It just means maybe they can be average instead of bad. And so I actually am with him on the Bengals side in this game. What was the Bengals, plus 2.5 at home. I'm all right with Bengals money line in this one. Overall, I think this is two pretty good teams in a pretty good game. I'll take the Bengals at home at plus money. Is kind of where I'm at on that. How about you?
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling. My concern is the Ravens are going to try to do what they did against the Bills because that Bengals D line, they don't have Sheldon Rankins back yet. They don't have BJ Hill back yet. So I worry a little bit.
Those guys might be back this week.
Are they? Okay. See, I thought they weren't likely to play this week.
I could be wrong. I just heard a report about that. I haven't researched it myself.
I mean, that would certainly help because to your point, maybe you can at least contain Derrick Henry so he doesn't have a game like he had against my Bills there. There's something about this spot where I do like the Bengals, and I do like what you guys said there with Chase and Higgins kind of getting going. Burrow seems to finally be, getting into his rhythm there and that. So I could see the Bengals pulling off a minor upset here. And like you said, getting points at home, I'd like to get a +3, if I were going to bet that. Right. I don't know that I'll touch it. I'm actually with Bradley in the sense that even though that number, what did you have the over under at? 50? 50.5?
No, it was 48.5 was out.
Oh, I definitely like it at 48.5. I saw it as high as 50.
I had seen that too. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would want to touch it with a 5 in front. I would still lean that way. But I think at 48.5, you could consider the over because I don't think these teams are going to be able to stop each other, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I just looked this up, and at least in terms of Thursday participation, Trey Hendrickson was limited, BJ Hill was limited, and then Sheldon Rankins did not participate on Thursday.
So maybe Hill comes back then.
Yeah, maybe they get a couple of those guys back, and you never know if they're all the way healthy and all that. But,
right.
Man, you get them out there. I mean, it's probably better than whatever they've been throwing out there.
Sure.
Lately. Yep. So,
yeah,
man, I like that. I hope that's the game we get. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. So
yeah, it should be a good one.
Yep. Yeah, and on the Bills, I don't have a super strong take on the Bills and Texans. That's where I was curious what your take was. I do think the injuries certainly play into things. I do lean Houston in this one, partly as a spot thing. We're getting into the season far enough where obviously you have to take a lot from what's actually happened in the games. But I just go back to priors too, and I still think that this Houston team on both sides of the ball has so much more potential than what they've shown.
Yeah.
But you named a big thing for me. If I knew that Joe Mixon was going to play and that he was healthy, I would probably bet Houston at plus 100 on the money line. Like, I think that's a game changer.
I do too. I think that's what I'm saying on both sides there. There are some key injuries that you look and say Mixon in or out is huge. Shakir in or out is huge. And, obviously both teams have other injuries as well that we've talked about, but sometimes it's like that one key thing in the matchup where you're like, if we go from Mixon to Cam Akers, we're seeing a drop off there, right? Or Khalil Shakir to whoever, right. Yeah, for sure.
And Mixon's not even a world beater, but he's just a good pro running back.
Well, and again, we talk a lot about matchups. He's kind of that physical runner with speed, similar to Derrick Henry. I realize he's not as big, he's not as powerful, he's not as good, but he's similar to Derrick Henry in his style. And when you look, Mixon has run very well against the Bills generally when he was in Cincinnati. He's the type of runner that gives a Sean McDermott defense, because we know how McDermott's going to play defense. He's going to take Collins and that outside receiving threats away. He's going to try to keep everything in front of him. And, they're going to play nickel defense, and that's the type of defense that Mixon's going to run right through. So, I think, you got to look for stuff like that before you bet this game.
And it's something worth watching. If we get a good report on him or a report that he's out, either way, you could think about making
For sure.
Speaking of people being in or out and the difference that makes, this game isn't that compelling, but I'm really curious to hear your take on right now. The Colts are +3, -116 going to Jacksonville. I don't think we know for sure yet whether it's Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson. I have some takes on how I would want to bet this based on who it is. I'm curious your take on what it does to the Colts, depending on who's playing quarterback.
I'll make this as simple as possible. Flacco's in, I'm betting the Colts. Richardson's in, I'm betting the Jags.
We're 100% on the same page.
I can't make it any easier than that. And look, there's all sorts of I hear local reports down here, and it's like, oh, Peterson's lost the locker room, and who knows? He probably has. But this Jags team, yes, people saw on national TV when they played my Bills, they got spanked, and people are like, oh, they're obviously whatever. But they nearly beat the Texans last week. They should have won in week 1. So, this could be a 2-2 team. Now, obviously they're not. They're 0-4. Their season could be over. Any hope they have to obviously win this week. But they've beat the Colts 9 straight times in Jacksonville. So 9-game home winning streak. I think if Richardson's in, I'm on the Colts. Or I'm on the Jags here. Now, like we said, flip it over. If Flacco's in, I think all of a sudden this Colts team becomes dangerous. So, I flip it at that point, and I'm like, give me the Colts here with the points. So that's kind of where I'm at. It sounds like you're similar there.
If I knew that Flacco was going to play, and I understand Flacco's old and he's not a world beater. I'm not saying he's amazing, but if you told me he was playing the rest of the season, I would go bet their division future right now at the price that it's at. Because I think they'd be in the mix for that if he was their quarterback. I don't think even Houston is far and away better at the moment with Flacco in there. The other thing with Richardson is even if he plays in this game, it's going to be worse than normal because he's still going to be hurt, which means his mobility is going to be limited. And he's probably the most inaccurate quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. So now you've got a guy who's got to stand back there and try to throw who can't throw. So it's big trouble.
Yeah, and there's a couple things too that I think Richardson's probably going to get the start. I don't know that for sure. Like you said, I don't think that's confirmed. If he does, I'm on Jacksonville too. Jonathan Taylor's banged up. I don't think that matters as much if Flacco's quarterback. To your point, he's a veteran. He's going to still be able to throw the ball, but I think that hurts Richardson. On the Jags side, they get a guy like Evan Ingram back, potentially, help that offense a little bit there. Their defense is not healthy yet, but I think they might get some back in that secondary there. So I don't know. I'm looking, if they announce Richardson as a starter, I'm going to go ahead and pound the Jags. If they announce Flacco as a starter, I'm going to take the Colts. So, but I will have a play on this game almost definitely.
I definitely like where you're coming from. It's amazing how big the difference is. As you know, I live in Indiana, and I can't say I'm a Colts fan, but I generally would cheer for him, you know. It's rough thinking about the future with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for a guy to develop, but when you just can't pass accurately, I don't know how you develop.
I mean, this could end up being an extremely cold take a year or two from now. I just don't think Anthony Richardson's got it. I just don't. And I know he's crazy talented and athletic and all that, but I just don't think he's got it. And by the way, how the heck does he limp off the field holding his freaking oblique or side or whatever was wrong with him? And the next play you call is a run option? Are you like, I mean, who are these coaches, man? Like, what, are you kidding me? Like,
I mean,
crazy.
It's almost like the coaching staff is like, hey, Anthony Richardson, fuck you. Go.
Maybe we can get Flacco in there, run him to the left. Yeah, exactly. I know.
Oh my gosh, for sure, man.
Wow.
Well, that game, it sounds like we're both interested in it, even though it's maybe not the most exciting game on the board. Do you have any other games that you've got your eye on?
I do, and it's similar to my Jets and Vikings take. I think that Monday night game with the Chiefs and Saints is interesting.
Oh, I can't wait to hear if we're on the same side here, because I got that here.
So it seems from what I can gather, and I understand why, you know, we can talk through the whys of it. It seems like people are on the Chiefs here. And I get it. I totally understand why, but I'm going the other direction here. I think that this game's close. The Chiefs are not beating anybody with any kind of, you know, authority, right? I mean, they're literally winning every game by 3 to 6 points. Now we're at about a 5.5 point spread here. So we're kind of in that threshold. Do I think they're going to win? I do. I think this is not a great matchup for the Saints. You know, they're going into hostile territory. Carr obviously is familiar with playing in Arrowhead. That's not going to be new to him. He's done that many times. Now, granted, he also struggled a lot in Arrowhead. But, you know, I don't know that the Saints are going to run the ball that well. But I think that the Saints can keep this game close. So I think there's actually two angles here. I think that the Saints plus points is an option here. And I also think the under's in play here as well. Now, obviously, they probably coincide with each other most likely. If the Saints are going to cover, it's probably going to stay under. But I just don't think, you know, when you look at this Chiefs offense, they haven't been great. They've been average. And, you know, that was with their best weapon this year, right? You know, and I mean, obviously, Travis Kelce is a Hall of Famer and the most known weapon. He's not the best weapon anymore on that team. I mean, you know, he might be this week, you know, with Rice out, but with Rice out, I just wonder where this offense is going to come from. And I'm not saying the Saints defense is phenomenal. I mean, they're probably average, but you know, how are they going to move the ball? I mean, is Kareem Hunt going to give them enough running it? I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Saints can slow that down. Yeah. And then it's like, how much can Kelce give you at this point? Is Smith-Schuster going to give you anything? I mean, can they get the rookie Worthy going? Maybe he can break a long one.
Can they get Kadarius Toney back?
They may have to. I mean, you know, who knows what they're going to put out there at this point. So I get where the sharp money's coming from on Kansas City here. I really do. It's not a great spot for the Saints. I mean, you know, the Saints, I think, are still a little inflated from their first couple week wins where they absolutely bashed teams over the head. But I'm just at a point here where I'm going to, just like with the Jets, I know it's not a great spot here for the Saints, but just like with the Vikings, I should say, I'm going with my gut and the matchup here. And I think that, to me, this is a field goal. This is a typical Chiefs game where Harrison Butker kicks a field goal at the end and the Chiefs win. Like that to me is what's going to happen in this game.
I bet the Saints +5. It's 5.5 now. I just, right now, with where the Chiefs are at, and you talked about a lot of the reasons why, but Kelce hasn't looked great, and he'll have good games. Sure, he's fine. Xavier Worthy looks fast, good receiver, but the losses that they've had, I mean, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Big losses on that offense. Also, we've talked before about how Kansas City sort of sleepwalks through the regular season, and they just get their wins. And that's what they've done. If you gave me any mid-tier NFL team against the Chiefs right now at 5.5 points, I would bet the other side.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think the Chiefs are beating anybody by a wide margin at the moment. I mean, other than the Patriots or something, maybe.
And that was, they haven't been, and that was with Rice and with Pacheco. And I mean, you know, so it's like, And I mean, look, you can say what you want. There's a big drop off from Rice to Justin Watson or whoever, Sky Moore, whoever's coming in to take those snaps, man. I mean, yeah.
I mean, Rashee Rice was looking like a legit top flight NFL receiver.
Top 10 guy.
They don't have another one on that roster.
No. I think they will end up making a trade if Rice is out for the year, which I guess it now is still a question.
I mean, they should go get Devontae Adams probably.
Yeah. Yep.
You said it, but I also like the under. Yeah. I think the Chiefs are going to be in a lot of games that are, 17-14, 20-17, that kind of thing. I think they play a lot of games in the mid 30s right now. So 43.5 is not a bad number in my opinion.
I would say I like the Saints a fair amount, and I like the under a fair amount. So it's not even just, hey, I'm leaning that direction. I mean, I feel pretty good about a Saints bet and pretty good about an under bet in this game.
Yeah, I need to go bet the under. I bet the Saints, but I haven't bet the under yet. But I definitely should do that because it's one of those things of, number one, there will be outliers where things don't go the way that they normally do, and things change over the course of the season. But being 4 games in, I think we have enough to go off of to have a feel for where teams are at. And I think that's actually where part of the edge can be right now, because books are so good at parsing all the data, just like all the professionals, that I think you really have to pay attention to where the movement is at right now, not even long-term trajectory.
Right. You're right. That's a good point.
In this spot right now, I think it's low-scoring games, and they probably pull a lot of them out.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out, too, and I think this sums up, if you want to say there's value or an edge or whatever, I think this sums it up. Right now, Mahomes is still one of the favorites to win MVP. Right now, I saw, some articles that came out this week that have him ranked as the number 1 quarterback in the league. Now, yes, we can absolutely say he's, the number 1 quarterback in the league. That's fine. I don't think many people are going to argue that. But his performance through 4 games is not even in the top 10. So, I mean, he's being outplayed by guys like Sam Darnold and, Geno Smith and others.
Jaden Daniels, a rookie.
Absolutely. So, I think, again, there's this inflated, it's the Chiefs, it's Mahomes. I don't discount that. Like I said, I think they'll find a way to win this game because that's what they do. But this is not the Tyreek Hill Chiefs that are putting 40 points up on people. And, this is just not that. I mean, it's not that at all.
Yeah. Well, we're on the same page with that one. Again, I really like that. Another angle you could take, and this might be more popular even, is teasing the Saints up if you want another leg to go, like with the Niners or something. Because if it's a low-scoring game, 12.5 feels like a lot.
I mean, that's a lot of points, 11.5 or whatever. Yeah,
sure. 11.5, right.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs haven't beaten anybody by 12 points in a year. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and I think the Saints are fine. Yeah, they're not as good as they were those first 2 games, but they're a fine team.
Yeah, they're not horrible. Right.
Yep. All right, Yanni. Well, we're getting close to kickoff for Thursday night, but are there any other games that we haven't talked about that you have interest in yet?
I'm actually more curious. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this one, but I'd love to know your thoughts on the Cleveland and Washington game. I think that's an interesting matchup, and I'm curious to hear if you have any thoughts on that.
Dude, this one feels like the Vikings and Jets to me.
It does. Exactly.
It's like this is a spot for Cleveland, plus 3.5 even out there right now against a Washington team that, don't get it twisted. I mean, I know last week looked great, but their defense still isn't good.
No, it's bad. Yeah.
And I'm not sure that Washington's offense is great unless Jaden Daniels is really running hot, which he certainly has been. But man, Cleveland's defense hasn't looked good, but is it more competent than the Cardinals? Yeah, probably. Yeah. And so this is one of those ones where I feel like it should just be an auto bet on Cleveland, especially at plus more than a field goal. But it's hard to get in front of a team that's looked like Washington has the last few weeks, or the last couple weeks, I guess, in particular. What do you similar thoughts for you, or do you think something different?
No, it is similar for me, and I'm going to pass on this one because I think what you said is I mean, I agree with. I just am at the point where I can't bet on Deshaun Watson. And I know he didn't. And I know he didn't play horribly last week. I mean, Cooper gave him an interception there, and, he actually did decent. I just can't bet on him at this point. But I think this spot for Cleveland is great. I think this is maybe one where it's like, at least for a week, the Jaden Daniels hype slows down just a little bit, right. Where it's like, okay, maybe he's not the best player on earth. So, yep. But I don't know. I can't bet on it though. I think it's a very intriguing game. I think for now, Washington and Jaden Daniels are going to be an intriguing team to watch for the next couple of weeks, just to see like how legit is this, how, because who knows, maybe they come in and they steamroll Cleveland, and then maybe it's like, wow, we need to take note that this team is legit, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not there yet, though. I'm not there yet. I think this is a Cleveland spot.
Yeah, I feel like I'd need a lot more. Honestly, if they can come in and steamroll Cleveland, the next week they go to Baltimore. And I know we talk about Baltimore's deficiencies, but man, if we can get a decent number at Baltimore, I think then I'd be in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that, I mean, well, who knows? That game could be fireworks in that one. There could be a lot of scoring potential.
It for sure could be.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll just say is I still need to see more before I'm going to believe in Cliff Kingsbury too. I'm not sure I'm ready to sign off on him running an offense that's just going to run roughshod over the league at this point.
Well, I think, again, it's like, how much do you believe in the sample size? Because for 4 weeks, it's looked really good. His offense has looked good. I mean, Daniels obviously looked good. I mean, how much do we need to see? 8 weeks of that? Like, what do we need to see before we buy into it? And I'm with you. I mean, I'm not 100% sold on that. But like we said, if they come in and steamroll Cleveland, if they look good against Baltimore, all of a sudden, I think it's like, okay, well, this is a big enough sample that we can say that they know what they're doing here, because it sure looks good now. I mean, it absolutely looks good for now. But yeah, I just have one other that I want to throw out there that I think, and I can't believe this, because like I was pretty low on this team, I think, overall. And I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily high on this team at this point, but I mentioned kind of what the Broncos did to that Jets offense. And I think that they're in position to put a little bit of a beating on the Raiders this week. And I think, I've been higher on the Raiders. I mean, I have a Raiders season win total over. So it's not that I think that this is necessarily a huge reflection on the Raiders. I just don't like this spot for the Raiders. I mean, my guess is Devonta Adams is not going to play.
Right.
Whether he's injured or whether he's just wanting a trade, whatever that is, I don't think he's going to play. So now you've got probably the best lockdown corner in the league in Surtain, who's probably going to be with Jacoby Myers. Where is this offense? Yeah, I mean, and Denver's been good against the run, or pretty good against the run. So, okay, if we can't run the ball, Myers is blanketed. Where's this offense coming from?
Maybe.
I mean, that's it. Like, maybe literally
it up for Brock Bowers. I don't know.
Well, and I was going to say, I think that's actually the one prop you could look at if you wanted to look at a Brock Bowers prop and say by default he's probably going to catch some passes in this game. But I don't think the Raiders are going to score. Now, this line got juiced. You could get under 17.5 Raiders team total, which I love, but it's now juiced. I think the last I saw it was minus 150. So, it's a little pricier. It was minus 120, which I think 17.5 at minus 120 is more than in play. I don't know at minus 150, but I think if you can still get the Broncos at minus 2.5, which is still out there in a lot of books, I think that this is a game where, I mean, it's tough to back Bo Nix. It's tough to back that offense. I think they can do enough, and I think this is a game that they can win 17-10. I mean, that's kind of where I am.
That's what I was going to ask is because I agree with all that you're saying about Denver's defense. I think their defense is good even, and the Raiders' offense is not. Gardner Minshew's been pretty much terrible, and like you said, no Devonta Adams. Another thing could be, do they go to Alexander Madison more? I don't mean that he'll be able to do anything, but if his prop numbers are low.
They did say, I mean, Pierce said he wanted to get Madison more involved just because he's looked better than Zamir White. So
yeah, Zamir White's been bad.
Yeah.
I even at 36, this is what I was going to say is I kind of like the under.
Even if look under.
Because I'm not convinced the Broncos can score. That's the only thing that would keep me off of that minus 2.5. But I agree with you. Denver's in a better spot here.
Yeah, I think you can bet Denver here minus 2.5. If you can find that Raiders total at 17.5 with normal juice, I think that's in play under. And I'm with you. I think that even with that low total, it's hard to see either of these teams putting up a lot of points.
I mean, and the NFL always surprises us, but I feel like I see this game being 9-6 more often than it's like 27-24.
I totally agree. I mean, I think what did I say? 17-10. I mean, that,
you did right.
That's 27 points. So I mean, you're what, 9 points clear of the mark if it ends up going that direction. So I think the Broncos are in play. I think the under's in play. I mean, that's definitely something. And I have not bet anything on that yet. I wish I would have bet that Raiders team total. I should have. But regardless, I think, like you said, the under's still potentially in play. A 2.5 with Denver's in play. I will most likely get something in on that game before Sunday.
Yeah, I like that one, man. That's good. Last one I'm going to throw out there, and we'll wrap this up. But I mentioned it earlier in a teaser. I really do like Seattle this week. Yeah. I don't think the Giants are good. Malik Neighbors is hurt. It sounds like he'll play. Well, he had the concussion. I think it was a concussion, right?
Concussion, yeah.
With the long week, it sounds like he definitely could play. But I just don't think the Giants have anything. And I think Seattle they're one of those teams that 4 weeks in, they're better. I think they're better than I thought they were going to be.
Me too.
I was down on Geno Smith. I bet his passing yards under. I think he's leading the league in passing, which is hilarious. That was a great call. Clearly not. But Kenneth Walker getting healthy too. I mean, that guy is just a beast when he's healthy. And I trust Mike McDonald to shore up the defense. And against the Giants, you don't have to shore it up that much.
No, and I think, to me, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think if Neighbors is out, which again, to me, I think it's 50-50. He's still in concussion protocol. So, whether or not they'll get him out there, if he's out, where's their offense?
Yeah.
I mean, they can't run the ball. Singletary's also potentially out, and not that Singletary's, anything spectacular.
But still, he's been good for them this year.
He's been solid, and when you look at what they've put in behind him, Tyrone Tracy, whoever they're nothing. So, I mean, if Singletary's not there, if Neighbors isn't there, it could get ugly in that game. It really could.
Yeah. This is one, I like the bet straight up. I also like it in a teaser. Sure. But this is another one along with the Packers for me, and maybe with the Niners this week, where I don't think a 2-touchdown plus win is anywhere out of the realm of possibility. So I don't think a little bit of an alt line here on this one either. I think it could really be a beatdown.
It could. I mean, this is definitely, I would not be shocked if this game gets really ugly. To your point, I mean, in all total, if you want to bet Seattle, I mean, you could sprinkle something in on that. I totally agree with you. I just, and again, especially if Neighbors doesn't play, I just don't know where they get offense at that point. I mean,
agreed. All right, man. Well, hey, this has been fun. I love the debut of Bradley too. We got to make sure that's a feature each week. He's got to be ready to go with a breakdown, but just tell him he's not allowed to show us up as much next time.
He'll be glad to hear that, man. He was excited to talk about that game. So,
dude, he did a phenomenal job. Seriously, to get on in that kind of setting and do what he did is super impressive. So that was awesome.
We'll have to recap next week and see what happens in that Bengals game compared to what we talked about. Chances are ours are 0-8, and his is probably spot on. So we'll see how it goes.
Dude, and then we'll just be like, hey, come listen to us just to get to Bradley, and then you'll know that's what it is from now on.
There it is.
So, all right, man. Well, hey, good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good, man. Good luck. Talk to you soon.